with you about your teacher's retirement benefits at the Retirement Systems of Alabama, as well as our deferred compensation plan known as RSA 1. So let's get underway here. Your teacher's retirement system is a defined benefit plan. TRS is the defined benefit, which means when you retire, you receive a monthly benefit from us for the rest of your life. That's a pretty sweet deal, to be honest with you. Compare that to what a lot of other Americans have. A 401k, for example, is what a lot of other Americans have, and all too often we see so many retirees, unfortunately, burning through their retirement savings very quickly, and as a result, they're left living on Social Security alone. That won't be the case for all of us. As retirees from Auburn University, we have a lifetime benefit that was paid to us on the last business day of every month for the rest of our lives. Now, the way we calculate that benefit is using a formula. I'm going to show you how that formula is. I'm going to show you the formula actually and the different variables in that formula. But I want to make sure that everybody understands that the way we calculate your benefits is through that formula. It's not contingent upon RSA's investment returns. Now, keep in mind, we've had some really great years over the past over the past decade, ever since we emerged from the Great Recession. RSA has done very well. The recession really hit us pretty badly back in 2008, 2009, 2010, but we've certainly emerged from that doing pretty well. Now, the thing to remember is while your benefits are guaranteed under the teacher's retirement system, cost of living adjustments, or COLAs as they're better known as, are not guaranteed. So do not plan for any cost of living adjustments in retirement. In years past, several years past, they used to be more commonplace. The legislature would typically pass a cost of living adjustment, every 4 years when they were up for re-election, but that has stopped. That has actually we've not had a cost of living adjustment since 2006 for our retirees. So don't bank on any COLAs in retirement. You can plan to receive that monthly benefit, but don't ever expect it to go up. Now, participation in the teacher's retirement system is mandatory. It's a condition of your employment at Auburn University. Most of you are considered regular members. If you're an education employee, regular member, you work in maintenance, you're a regular member, you're contributing at 7.5% of your earnable compensation as a Tier 1 member. However, we may have some firefighters or law enforcement officers who work at Auburn University who are joining us today. They contribute at 1 percentage point more at 8.5% of their earnable compensation. However, those full-time certified firefighters and law enforcement officers actually receive 1 bonus year for every 5 years they work in that certified full-time capacity. So that's why they're contributing at 1 percentage point more than a regular member. Alrighty. Now, Tier 1 members, when it comes to retirement eligibility, that comes after 25 years of service, regardless of age, or at age 60 with as little as 10 years of service credit. Okay? So remember, if you started later in life working for Auburn University, you may get to age 60 with far less than 25 years. But if you have at least 10 years under age 60, you are eligible for retirement under Tier 1. If you started early in life, like I did, I started at age 22 with the state of Alabama, I could retire at age 47. Not going to happen, though. Got this ring on my finger. That's not happening. But if I were able to retire after 25 years, I'd just be 47 years of age. So we do have a lot of young retirees who perhaps pick up future employment after they've retired from Auburn University. Now, back in 2012, the legislature made some changes to the teacher's retirement system, as well as the employee's retirement system, which applies to most state employees. And what this change was called the New Hire Retirement Act. And it states that those who came to work for Auburn University or any other TRS or ERS participating employer for the first time on or after January 1st of 2013 are going to be deemed a Tier 2 member. Okay, those Tier 2 members still get a lifetime benefit when they retire, but the way we calculate that benefit and when eligibility for retirement occurs is a little bit different under Tier 2. Okay, so if you were ever contributing to the retirement systems of Alabama by working at one of our participating agencies prior to 2013, you're going to be grandfathered in the Tier 1 plan. Even if you had separated employment and withdrew your account and then came to Auburn University, say in 2015, if you had any contributions that you made to RSA prior to 2013, you're automatically grandfathered as a Tier 1 member. And that's important to know. Now, Tier 2 members are contributing a little bit less than Tier 1. Tier 2 members are contributing 6% of their earnable compensation as regular members, and full-time certified firefighters and law enforcement officers, we don't have too many of them in the teachers' retirement system. And I don't know if you guys have them on campus, probably the campus police, if they're not through the city police department. They're going to be contributing at 7% of their earnable compensation. Again, 1 percentage point more. They don't get the bonus years under Tier 2, those full-time certified law enforcement officers and firefighters, but they are able to retire at a younger age than their regular Tier 2 counterparts. So, as far as collecting retirement benefits under Tier 2, notice there's no longer a 25-year retirement at any age. Under Tier 2, so if you started contributions to the retirement systems of Alabama on or after January 1st of 2013, that was your first time you started contributing, you are a Tier 2 member, and you're eligible to retire at age 62 with at least 10 years of service credit. If you're a full-time certified law enforcement or firefighter, it's age 56 with at least 10 years of service credit. So there's no longer a 25-year retirement at any age. That has since gone away with the Tier 2 plan. There has been discussion. Certainly this year, the legislative session ended quickly, I should say, as a result of the pandemic. But there were a lot of discussion talking about a Tier 3. Tier 3 has not come into fruition yet. It's still just Tier 1 and Tier 2. So maybe one day Tier 3 will come about and it may introduce maybe a 30-year retirement at any age. That was what some of the legislators were discussing previously. Okay, but right now it's still just Tier 1 and Tier 2. And I want to mention here as well, 10 years of service credit. 10 years is a big benchmark to meet in your pathway to retirement. When you have 10 years of service credit, you're vested, and that entitles you to a lifetime benefit that you can draw later in life. So say, for example, if you started working in your 20s or 30s and you just did 10 years of service, or maybe 12, and then left Auburn University to pursue employment elsewhere, maybe outside of the state of Alabama. And in that case, you wouldn't be contributing anymore to the retirement systems of Alabama. But upon reaching age 60 or 62, depending on which tier you're in, you could begin drawing your benefits from the teacher's retirement system. So getting 10 years is a very important benchmark to meet in your pathway to retirement. Okay. Now, we do have a pre-retirement death benefit, and this is something that I wanted to add to the presentation today because, you know, in years past at the benefits fair, I had a lot of people ask me about the pre-retirement death benefit. What happens if, I'm contributing all this money each pay period? What happens if I pass away? What does my beneficiary receive? Well, if you pass away before making it to retirement, your beneficiary will receive a monetary death benefit based on several factors that you see up on the screen, but you can also find, a little bit more details about that pre-retirement death benefit on page 15 in that TRS member handbook that I showed you how to access earlier on our website. I also included the link to that TRS member handbook in the chat box. Now, the pre-retirement death benefit, of course, it is a monetary death benefit. It's not paid to you. Of course, you would be passed away, but it's paid to your beneficiary. And that's the reason why you want to keep your beneficiary current with the teacher's retirement system. Because if you have an ex-spouse still listed as your beneficiary and not your current spouse, and if you were to pass away, the money will be paid to your ex-spouse, the last designated beneficiary. So do keep your beneficiary current with the retirement systems of Alabama. And I'll show you at the end of the presentation how to download that change of beneficiary form for you to sign in front of a public notary so that you can go ahead and turn it in and change your beneficiary. Alrighty. Now, what that pre-retirement death benefit in most cases is going to be a lump sum payment that would include a year of your salary plus your entire TRS account balance, which includes the interest that was posted to that account, and a $15,000 term life insurance benefit. Okay, so that's going to be the lump sum payment that most is most common for the pre-retirement death benefit. Now, if you are already retirement eligible, then your beneficiary, if it happens to just be a single person, not multiple, but just a single person, that one beneficiary could choose between that lump sum payment that I just described, a year of your salary, your account balance, and a $15,000 term life insurance benefit, or that beneficiary could receive the option 3 survivor benefit, which is a monthly benefit payment paid to that beneficiary every month for the rest of that beneficiary's life, and that $15,000 term life insurance benefit. So just remember, the pre-retirement death benefit is a monetary death benefit that is paid to your last designated beneficiary if you were to pass away before making it to retirement. And you may want to share that information with your beneficiary, or if you're not so sure about your beneficiary, maybe you don't want to share that information with them, but it's up to you. Now, we have service credit, and I want to make sure I spent a little bit talking about getting vested. 10 years of service credit gets you vested. Service credit is actually one of the variables in the formula to calculate your retirement benefit. And when it comes to service credit, we have two different types. We have membership service, which is service that we all accrue while we're working. We earn service credit, membership service. And then we have purchasable service. Now, there's a whole host of purchasable service out there in the teacher's retirement system, but these are the most commonly purchased. If you have a previously withdrawn account from the retirement systems of Alabama and you've returned to work with one of our participating employers, such as Auburn University, and once you have been with the university for 2 years, you can go ahead and request a cost letter to see about purchasing a previously withdrawn account of yours. Now, it's typically a very wise investment to purchase that previously withdrawn service, especially earlier the better. It's going to cost a little bit more the longer you wait because it will go up on an 8% compounded basis every year. So you want to be conscientious about purchasing that previously withdrawn service back as quickly as possible. Adding service credit, of course, will increase your retirement benefit and will help lower your PHIP health insurance premium. I spoke about that PHIP insurance yesterday morning. We also have military service, and there are two different types of military service out there. The first military service purchase can be made in your very first year that you begin contributions to the retirement systems of Alabama by working at one of our participating employers. If you don't do it in your very first year, the next opportunity to purchase military time is when you have 10 years of service credit, 10 years of membership service credit to be exact, okay? Now, you can purchase up to 4 years of active duty military service. If you're already receiving a retirement benefit from that military service, or you are scheduled to receive a retirement benefit from that military service, then that would not be eligible for purchase. Say if you had maybe 4 years that you served in the military and then you left and came to work for Auburn University or somewhere else, you're not scheduled to receive a retirement benefit from that military service, then you could purchase that and add that service to your account. Okay, it can get pretty costly, especially if you don't do it in your first year of employment. The next opportunity when you have 10 years of membership service, at that point it becomes very costly. Okay, so just remember, whenever you see in that TRS member handbook a type of service purchase that's priced actuarially, it's going to be expensive because it's based off of what you're making now and how close buying that service will get you to retirement eligibility. While I'm on this military service purchase, I want to talk to you about another type of military service for our members who ever get called up to active duty. If you get called up to active duty as a result of, going to wars, what have you, we had a lot of this happen, over the past couple of years, a lot of people getting called up to active duty, especially during the beginning of the War on Terror. We have the Noble Eagle service purchase. So when you're called up to active duty, you're no longer going to be in pay status with Auburn University. And if you're not in pay status, you're on leave of absence without pay, and you're not contributing to the teacher's retirement system as a result of being on that leave of absence, going on that military activation. Upon returning from that military activation, you have up to 3 times the length of your tour of duty up to a maximum of 5 years to purchase the time that you're away on active duty. And the cost of that purchase is very, very affordable. It's only what you would have been paying in to the teacher's retirement system had you actually not been called up to active duty. Okay, so that's a very simple purchase to make for our members who are in the military. If you get called up to active duty, do remember, upon returning, you have up to 3 times the length of your tour of duty, up to a maximum of 5 years to make that purchase. Out-of-state public service, it pretty much says it right there what it is. If you are working over at the state of Georgia, for example, and you were not vested over in that plan in Georgia, and you want to bring some years into Alabama, you can do that once you have 10 years of membership service in Alabama. Now, out-of-state public service is priced actuarially, so it's going to be very expensive at times, especially if it's going to get you close or get you to retirement eligibility under our plan. So, once you have at least 10 years of membership service, if you have any out-of-state public service that you'd like to bring into Alabama, you may want to go ahead and do that as quickly as possible, because the longer you wait, the more it's going to end up costing you, because it's going to get you to retirement eligibility sooner. All righty. So we have other types of services that you may be able to buy. And if you're interested, I encourage you to look at that member handbook. We have, you can purchase up to 1 year of medical leave of absence where you are not in pay status. You can purchase up to 1 year throughout your career. That medical leave of absence. We also have maternity leave. If you ever go out on leave of absence and are not on pay status, then you could purchase that time if you was for maternity leave. And men, you too can actually purchase maternity leave. All righty. But I encourage you to look in the member handbook. And if you're ever interested in purchasing service, you would want to reach out to Teachers Retirement System, and I'll provide our contact information at the very end of this presentation. Now, a benefit that is a phenomenal benefit to have under this plan is known as sick leave conversion. And it only applies to our Tier 1 members. So if you're a Tier 2 member, you're not going to be able to convert your sick leave into service credit at the time of retirement. But if you are Tier 1, your sick leave has value, even if you don't use it, because you can convert that unused sick leave into service credit, which would allow you to reach, retirement eligibility sooner, or if you've already met retirement eligibility, when you eventually retire, it's simply going to be adding more months, perhaps a year of service credit to your account, which therefore increases your retirement benefit. Okay. Now, converting it's a very simple thing. Your employer, Auburn University, will notify us how much sick leave that you have. We go by days, not hours, as I mentioned earlier in the presentation before I started the recording. But we go by days when it comes to sick leave, 8 hours to a day. And that's certified by your employer when you turn in your retirement application. One thing to remember is that you cannot get paid for sick leave, okay, and obtain service credit for it. It's one or the other. And I don't know if Auburn University pays any of its employees for unused sick leave, but if they do, then you would not be able to convert your sick leave into service credit. Alrighty. Now, there is a cap on how much sick leave that you can convert. And it depends on how many years of service credit you're retiring with. This is how sick leave works. We look at how the maximum works, rather. We allow you to convert 1 day of sick leave for every month that you've been employed in contributing to the retirement systems of Alabama. So say, for example, you had 10 years of service credit and you were age 60, and you're Tier 1, of course, as this is only a Tier 1 benefit. You're Tier 1, you retire at age 60 with 10 years. We'll let you convert up to 120 days of sick leave, because 1 day per month, and there are 120 months in 10 years. So if you only had 10 years of service credit and retired, then it would be a maximum of 120 days. If you have 25 years of service credit at retirement, that's equivalent of 300 months, right? 25 years is the equivalent of 300 months. We would let you convert up to 300 days of sick leave. If you had 30 years of service credit at retirement, we would let you convert up to 360 days. Now, I don't find too many of our members having that kind of sick leave on the books, but some of us may never take sick leave and may have a substantial amount on the books. Just remember that's how we determine what the cap is on how much sick leave that you can convert. 1 day for every month that you've been participating and contributing to the retirement systems of Alabama. Now, we do have a disability retirement with RSA, and this is not the same as Social Security disability. You have to have 10 years of service credit, you have to be vested, and you have to be in service or on official leave of absence, okay? You cannot quit your job at Auburn University and then apply for an RSA disability retirement. You have to be in service or on official leave of absence. Now, we can extend that official leave of absence up to 2 years, but generally speaking, 1 year is what we limit it at, but we can at sometimes extend that up to 2 years. But you cannot quit your job. Just make sure you understand that. You have to be in service when you apply for RSA disability retirement. Now, we have a medical board at RSA that meets on the first Tuesday of every month to review all the disability retirement applications, as well as the support documentation that was provided from those members' physicians. Based on that information, the RSA Medical Board will make a determination of whether to approve or disapprove your disability retirement application. Now, if you're approved for disability retirement, then you would get your retirement benefit, your disability retirement benefit. Again, it's a lifetime benefit. There is some follow-up with the disability retirement. You're not all in the clear once you get approved. Up until age 60, when you become eligible for a service retirement, we will follow you up until that point, and after that point, we'll no longer be following up on that disability. Now, the way we calculate that disability retirement is using the same formula that we use for a service retirement. But as I said earlier in the presentation, in that formula, we talk about the different variables, and one of those variables was service credit. If you don't have a lot of service credit, and you're going out on a disability retirement, then your retirement benefit's not going to be as much as it would be for somebody who retired, say, with 25 or 30 years of service credit, okay? Service credit is one of those variables in that formula. Now, sick leave cannot be converted under a disability retirement in most cases. If you are already eligible for a service retirement, then you could convert that sick leave into service credit. But generally speaking, most people who are going out on an RSA disability retirement have pretty much burned through most, if not all, of their sick leave in the process of obtaining a disability retirement. It does exist, this disability retirement, and I just make sure that you understand that it's there and it's not the same as Social Security. Now, a lot of our members are always inquiring about the retirement process. And so I want to spend a few moments going over the retirement process as well as the different retirement options we are presented with at the time of retirement. So when you turn in your retirement application, that's called Form 10, you can find that on our website. It's your part 1 of the retirement plan, process, I should say. You indicate your intent to retire. It will always be the first day of any given month. You don't retire on the 2nd day. You don't retire on the 15th day. You always retire on the first day of any given month. Now, if I were to turn in my retirement application, it's going to be on the first day of a given month. I just want to make sure everybody understands that. Now, we need to have that notarized, that application, and it's also going to require employer certification. The good thing now is that most of our employers, I think Auburn University is certainly one of them, is able to certify your remaining salary before retirement. They can typically do that online now. And so you could just turn it in without your employer certification because most of the time that's being done online by your employer. There is a direct deposit authorization in that retirement application because our monthly benefits are directly deposited into our checking or savings account. So you've got to get that signed off by your bank, okay? And then we need to get Part 1 turned into us between 30 to 90 days prior to your effective date of retirement. You know, if I turn in my retirement application today on November 18th, the earliest possible retirement date for me would be January 1st because we're already within 30 days of December 1st. So you have to turn it in anywhere between 30 to 90 days prior to your effective date of retirement. Once we receive part 1, then in response, we send you part 2. And not only will you get part 2 from us, as I mentioned yesterday with PHIP, we'll also send you enrollment forms to enroll in your PHIP health insurance in retirement. But as far as the part 2 retirement application, very simple here. We mail it to you after we get part 1, and you will choose on that part 2 of the application, your monthly retirement benefit that you wish to receive for the remainder of your life. You'll also indicate your federal withholding status, whether that be single in 1, married in 2, single in 0. You would indicate that on the federal withholding status. Now, the thing to remember with part 2 is we need to receive it in hand before your official date of retirement. Remember, I said part 1 has to be turned in anywhere between 30 to 90 days before your effective date of retirement. Well, say if my effective date of retirement is January 1st, I need to have part 2 in to RSA no later than December 31st. I need to have it turned in before my date of retirement, because if I don't, then the teacher's retirement system is automatically going to assign me with the maximum monthly benefit amount. And that's one of the 4 choices that we can select among under Part 2. And while that is the most that you can possibly draw, it leaves very little behind for your beneficiary. And remember, if you don't turn in Part 2, you will get the maximum assigned to you, and that is irrevocable. Now, I've alluded to the formula a few times already this afternoon. We have the formula for our Tier 1 members up on the screen here. Again, Tier 1 members are those who began contributions to the teacher's retirement system, or just to RSA, even if you were working at an ERS employer, before 2013. So if you were contributing to RSA before 2013, you're Tier 1. Average final salary for our Tier 1 members is the highest 3 years of salary out of the last 10 years the member made contributions. Now, our year is a little bit different than a calendar year. We actually operate under the teacher's retirement system on a scholastic year, which runs from July 1st through June 30th. Okay, so it's still 12 months. It's not a calendar year, it's a scholastic year. So we look at your average final salary, which is the highest 3 scholastic years of salary out of the last 10 years the member made contributions. We're going to multiply that by your years and months of creditable service. So, for example, if you have 25 years of service on the money, you just put 25 there. If you had 25 years and 7 months, that would be 25.583333. Okay, so just understand that we include under this years and months of creditable service your membership service, your purchase service if you purchased any, and sick leave that you've converted into service credit. Then we're going to multiply that by the benefit factor. So the benefit factor is a constant. In this formula, it is 2 1/180%. So if you want to just do the math real easy in your head, you may want to round down to just 2%. Divide by 12 as there's 12 months in the year, and that gets us our maximum monthly benefit amount. Alrighty. And when I talk about the highest years, 3 years, people always ask, what if I have a half year? You know, say if I retired on January 1st, well, I would have only worked half of that last year. So, and that's my higher salary. Well, we'll include those 6 months from July all the way to January, and then we'll go back and find the next highest scholastic year, the next highest scholastic year, and then we'll pull 6 months from the other highest scholastic year to make it a whole 36 months for 3 years, okay? So that's how we calculate the retirement benefit for our Tier 1 members. If we have any Tier 1 members who get paid a lot of overtime, you're only contributing on so much of your overtime. So for example, you know, for instance, if you work in maintenance and you do a lot of overtime, maybe you're getting a lot of overtime during certain seasons, a football season or something like that, your overtime salary does count somewhat in that average final salary. It could. but you can only contribute to the teacher's retirement system on 120% of your base salary. So say, for example, if your base salary were $50,000 a year, and if you earned overtime, maybe your overtime got you to a point where you had $70,000 for the year as your salary. Well, you're only able to contribute on 120% of your base salary. So if your base salary were $50,000, for example, the most that you could contribute on would be $60,000, 120% of your base salary. So do keep that in mind if you're one of our members who gets paid a lot of overtime. Now, Tier 2 formula looks a little different here. Okay, average final salary under Tier 2 is the highest 5 years of salary out of the last 10 years the member made contributions. We average those high 5 years to come up with your average final salary. Years and months of creditable service, again, that's going to be any membership service and purchased service. You cannot convert sick leave under Tier 2, so you would not have any unused sick leave added into this as service credit. Multiply it by the benefit factor, and that benefit factor, as you can see, is lower than 2% that you had for Tier 1. It's 1.65%. And divide by 12, and that gets us the maximum monthly benefit amount. Now, the rule with overtime for Tier 2 members is slightly different than Tier 1. Instead of only limiting it to 120% of your base salary, if you earn overtime, you're able to contribute up to 125% of your base salary if you're a Tier 2 member. So it's slightly better in that respect. But your average final salary is based off of the highest 5 years, not the highest 3 as it would be under Tier 1. Now, when you get to retirement and you turn in your retirement application, you'll be sent Part 2. And Part 2 will have the 4 different payment options available for you to see how much you would draw on each one. You have 4 choices: the maximum monthly benefit amount, option 1, option 2, and option 3. Regardless of the choice you make, you receive a lifetime benefit so long as you live in retirement. Okay? So the maximum is the most, but it's going to leave very little behind for your beneficiary. In fact, the only thing that your beneficiary is going to receive is a prorated monthly benefit that covers the number of days that you lived in your last month of life. So it's not going to be a heck of a lot of money with the maximum for your beneficiary. It's going to be the most that you can receive as the retiree, but it leaves very little behind for the beneficiary. Again, we will assign the maximum to you if you fail to make a choice before your date of retirement. Option 1, slightly less than the maximum, but you have your remaining account balance paid to the beneficiary. So that could be a substantial amount of money. Options 2 and 3 provide you, again, with a lifetime benefit, but provides not only you with a lifetime benefit, but after your passing, your one and only one beneficiary will receive a benefit for the rest of his or her life. So just remember, the choice you make is going to provide you with a lifetime benefit. However, the choice is also going to reflect what you want to leave behind for your beneficiary. So if you look at this example here of a Tier 1 member, he's 63, his beneficiary is 59, and he has 28 years and 7 months of service credit. Okay, his average final salary is $48,000. Following the formula, we get to learn that the maximum monthly benefit amount would be $2,300.96 each month for the rest of that retiree's life. All benefits will cease at the time of the retiree's death, and as I said just a moment ago, the only thing that the beneficiary would receive is a one-time prorated monthly benefit that covers the number of days you lived in your last month of life. I mentioned earlier in the presentation that your retirement benefit is paid on the last business day of the month. You retire on the first day of the month. So say if you passed away on the 15th of any given month, in this case, this member is drawing $2,300. If he passed away on the 15th of any given month, he lived half the month, his beneficiary is going to get half of that $2,300, and that's it. Doesn't matter how long or how short the retiree lived in retirement. The member lived in retirement. I have a next door neighbor of mine. She's 97. I mean, she's a retired educator here in Alabama, and she's been retired for 37 years since she was age 60. She chose the maximum, and I think that was a pretty wise decision on her part. She's drawn the most she can possibly draw, and she's drawn it for 37 years. Now, I've seen other people who have taken the maximum and died 4 months into retirement, and then they're really disappointed, the beneficiary is really disappointed to learn that all that's available is that one-time prorated monthly benefit. So that's why we see a lot of people deferring to option one. If they were looking at the maximum, they may want to choose option one if they want to be sure that if they were to pass away early in retirement, at least their account balance won't go in vain. Because with option one, okay, in this example, the member is going to draw $2283.46, which is just slightly less than that $2,300. But with option one, that account balance that the member had built up over his 28 years and 7 months is $65,000. That account balance we're going to draw a little bit on each month, in this case for the first 10 years and 9 months of this member's retirement. So we're going to draw out, in that case, $503.26. And I think it's a little bit better if I get my laser pointer up here. We're going to take this 503 and we're going to use it to go toward paying the $2283.46. But after 10 years and 9 months of doing that, this account balance will be depleted at that time. So the only thing left for a beneficiary would be a prorated monthly benefit. However, if the retiree in this case passed away, say 3 or 4 years in retirement, there would still be a substantial amount of money in this account balance. And whatever's remaining in the account balance at the time of the retiree's death is paid to the beneficiary as a lump sum. The nice thing with the maximum in option one is that you can have multiple beneficiaries. You don't have to just have one, you can have multiple. You can name an estate, you can name a nonprofit, a church, an animal shelter as your beneficiary if you wish, because it's just going to be a one-time payment, alrighty, to the beneficiary. Another thing, while you can have as many beneficiaries as you would like, with the maximum or option one, you can also change your beneficiaries as often as you would like in retirement. Okay? So you're not locked into your beneficiary if you take the maximum or option one. Now, these two options are going to be you're going to get more money from these because you're just leaving a one-time payment to your beneficiary. When it comes to the other two choices, options 2 and option 3, you have a little bit more limitations. With option 2, you're not going to draw as much. In fact, option 2 is going to be the smallest retirement benefit option for you. Okay? And the reason it is because not only do we pay you for the rest of your life as a retiree, but when you pass away, your beneficiary will receive the same exact benefit that you received during your lifetime that beneficiary is going to receive for the rest of his or her lifetime. That's known as the 100% survivor benefit. And notice it says survivor. It doesn't say survivors. So with option 2 as well as option 3, you can only have one beneficiary, just one. You cannot have multiple beneficiaries. You cannot name an estate, for example, as your beneficiary under option 2 or 3. You cannot name an entity such as Auburn University as your beneficiary. It has to be a person. We need to see a date of birth for that beneficiary because that's what we're going to use to determine how much we're going to reduce your benefit from the maximum if you choose to take option 2 or 3. So if your beneficiary is substantially younger than you are, you're going to notice your benefit under option 2 and 3 be reduced even more so because we're going to have to factor paying that younger beneficiary for what could be many, many years after you pass away. Now, in this case, in this example, the beneficiary was only 4 years younger. Remember, we started off at $2,300 under the maximum. under option 2, it's dropped all the way down to just above $2,000. And that's because the beneficiary is 4 years younger. So we're going to have to factor in paying that beneficiary for a longer period of time. Option 3 is the survivor benefit, 50% survivor benefit. So with option 3, you don't take as large of a reduction from the maximum. However, your beneficiary, after you've passed away, is only going to get 50% of what you drew during your lifetime. He or she will get for the rest of only 50% of that for the rest of his or her life, the beneficiary. So, options 2 and 3, they provide lifetime benefits to you, but after you pass away, they provide lifetime benefit to your beneficiary. You can only have one beneficiary with option 2 or option 3. You cannot change your beneficiary unless you experience certain events. So under option 2 and option 3, you can only replace your beneficiary in retirement if one of these two events occur. The beneficiary predeceases the retired member, or the retired member and the beneficiary divorce. Those are the only two occasions that would permit you as the retiree, if you selected option 2 or 3, to change your beneficiary. Remember, with the option 1 and the maximum, you could change your beneficiary as often as you'd want, and you could have multiple beneficiaries. But with options 2 and 3, you can only have one beneficiary, and you can only change that beneficiary in cases of death or divorce. And if you choose to replace a beneficiary because one of these two events transpires, then that newly designated beneficiary is going to have to be on record for 2 years before he or she would become eligible for that lifetime benefit upon your passing. So if you were to change your beneficiary and then pass away, say a year later, that newly designated beneficiary would not receive that monthly benefit for the rest of his or her life. Alrighty, so just understand with options 2 and 3, there are some limitations. Now, last year, the legislature passed a bill that allows you to designate a special needs trust under option 2 or option 3. So what I mean by that is a special needs trust. Say if you want to be sure to leave your monthly benefit to a child or a spouse who is permanently disabled, for example, but you want to be sure that that monthly benefit's not going to affect their eligibility for certain government programs such as Medicaid. That's why the bill was passed, was to offer a special needs trust. We still have to have a date of birth for that beneficiary, but we could pay that special needs trust under option 2 or option 3. Okay, so that is new as of last year. Also, just to go back a second here to option 3, that pre-retirement death benefit I spoke about earlier, if you are retirement eligible but pass away before making it to retirement, and you only had one beneficiary on file, I said that beneficiary could choose either the 50% survivor benefit option, which is option 3, or, which would be down here in this example, or that lump sum payment. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about. That option 3 survivor benefit is down here. Now, the newest feature to our plan was the partial lump sum option plan that started just last year. I know I'm running short on time here. I'm sorry, y'all. I hope it isn't a problem if I go over a little bit. The partial lump sum option plan, better known as PLOP, allows you to take a partial lump sum of your retirement benefits at the beginning of your retirement in exchange for receiving a permanently reduced benefit for the rest of your life. That partial lump sum amount can be anywhere between 1 month of your maximum monthly benefit, all the way up to 24 months of your maximum monthly benefit. We round to increments of $1,000. The payment is subject to a 20% withholding for federal income taxes, and you cannot do a PLOP payment on a disability retirement unless you were already eligible for a service retirement. So, give you an example with the plop and how much of a reduction someone would incur as a result of taking a plop payment. So we have the four choices. These are the original amounts that we had in our example. If the member, remember the maximum here is $2,300. If the member chose to take 1 month of plop, which would be the minimum plop payment, we would round that $2,300.96 up to the nearest thousand. We round up on the bottom end to $3,000. The member would receive a $3,000 lump sum payment. But say if the member had intended to take option 2, well, the option 2 benefit would go from $2,019.78 and it would drop down to $1,998.69 by just taking that 1 month of plop by getting that $3,000. Say, for example, if the retiree chose to get the maximum plop, 24 months of their maximum monthly benefit paid to them, it's going to be 24 times $2,300.96, and it's going to be a little bit more than $55,000, but on the top end we round down, so we'd round down to $55,000. The member would get that partial lump sum payment at the beginning of his retirement, and that monthly benefit for him, since he was planning on taking option 2, would drop from $2,019.78 to $1,633.07. Pretty noticeable reduction, all to just get that $55,000 lump sum payment. So just remember, with the plop, you will incur a permanent reduction if you take the plop payment. So you really want to run the numbers and see whether it's worth it. Generally speaking, if you took 2 people side by side, exact same situation, exact same salary, years of service, all of that. If you took 2 people and put them side by side, one took a plop payment, the other didn't take the plop payment, the one who took the plop payment will have received more money from RSA for probably about first 10 years. But after 10 years, the one who didn't take the plop is going to get more money because that retirement benefit's going to be the original amount. It's going to be higher than the adjusted amount for the one who actually took the plop payment. Okay, so think carefully about this. You would want to be using plop, for example, to pay off some high interest debt, or maybe pay off your house. You wouldn't want to use a plop payment to purchase a bass boat or something depreciatory asset, right? Because you want to make sure that you're going to use the plop money wisely. Now, when it comes to taxes, Alabama state income tax is not going to be levied on your TRS retirement benefit. Neither is FICA, Social Security and Medicare tax. And you will no longer be contributing to the teacher's retirement system as a retiree. So there are a lot of things that come out of your check today that will not be coming out of your retirement benefit. Now, your retirement benefit is going to be subject to federal income tax. You can't escape Uncle Sam on this one. You still pay federal income tax. That will come out first, and then your PHIP retiree premiums will be deducted from your TRS retirement benefit. And we always mail our members 1099-Rs each year in January, so those retired members can go ahead and do their taxes. Now, if you wish to go to work after you've retired from Auburn University, that is allowable. You can do that. You can go to work wherever you'd like, so long as they're willing to hire you. But the only time we're going to be concerned at RSA about your post-retirement employment is if you wish to work for one of our participating employers under the retirement systems of Alabama. Whether that be an ERS agency or a TRS agency, you would have to make sure that you follow these 2 rules in order to be sure that you can continue to draw your monthly retirement benefit from RSA. You have to be employed in a part-time capacity, and you cannot be earning any more than, what next year's the limit is $32,000. Alrighty, so those 2 conditions must be adhered to if you are going to want to continue drawing your TRS retirement benefit and go to work for one of our participating agencies. Now, if you go to work full-time for one of our participating employers, we will suspend your retirement benefit. Okay, and there's a couple of other rules along with that, but I just want to notify you about post-retirement employment rules. If you want to work, say, in the state of Georgia, we don't care how much you earn, and you can earn as much as you'd like if you want to work for a private university here in Alabama. But if you're going to be working for any of our agencies or any of our employers, you are limited to these two: part-time employment and no more than $32,000 a year in salary. Okay. Now, I promised you I'd speak a little bit about our RSA 1 deferred compensation plan now. This is our voluntary retirement savings plan. It's been around since 1986 for our members to save additionally for retirement. And so I want to just kind of go over it real quickly with you. I know we're a little short on time. I hope it's not going to run too close into the next session. But RSA 1 is a voluntary plan that allows you to set aside a portion of your salary each pay period on a pre-income tax basis. So while you're saving, of course, for retirement by deferring salary into RSA 1, you're also reaping that ancillary benefit of lowering your taxable income and therefore lowering your tax liability right now. Okay. Now, investing in RSA 1 is a very simple plan. We only have 3 investment funds to choose among. We have the bond fund, the stock fund, and the short-term investment fund. All 3 of these funds have some element of risk, some greater than others, of course. The bond fund tends to be one of our more stable funds. We tend to yield about 3 to 5% a year with the bond fund on average. Though in fiscal year 2019, we had over a 9% rate of return with the bond fund. So that actually did really well. But that was an outlier. Usually you're getting close to 3 to 5%. The stock fund, hey, it's been a roller coaster year for the stock fund for sure. You know, in the beginning of the year, it started just going downhill, and then in April, June, went up, and then it kind of wavered a little bit. And it's an S&P 500 index fund, so it's going to be tracking the S&P 500. Okay, so that's one good way to keep track of our stock fund. Now, a short-term investment fund, it's not a moneymaker. It's not a moneymaker at all. You're probably going to yield maybe 0.5% a year with a short-term investment fund, maybe 1% if you're lucky. It's something that some of our members who are now retired look more favorably at because, you know, since they're retired, they may want to shift their money into the short-term investment fund so it doesn't get, it's not facing a lot of volatility such as which would be seen with the stock fund. Now, just keep in mind that you can choose among these 3 different funds. You don't have to have all going into one. You can split among the 3 as you see fit, and you can change how you have your account balance or future deferrals invested every 90 days in the plan. Now, the makeup of the funds, of course, that's going to be decided by Dr. Bronner and the RSA investment team. Dr. Bronner, if you don't know, is our CEO and has been now for well over 45 years. Dr. Bronner and the staff, RSA investment staff, handle the investing, and they're the same people who handle the investing for the TRS retirement funds. We are state employees at RSA, so we're not going to charge you any fees to participate in the plan. Okay, there are absolutely no fees. Compare that to other plans that may, charge a fee for, transactions or commission fees. None of that applies with RSA 1. We don't have RSA. We don't have any fees at RSA, so no fees whatsoever. And I see some questions coming up in the chat box, and I promise I'll get to them in just a second, okay, when I finish the presentation. Now, also remember that the money that you defer into RSA 1 is not going to have any impact on how we calculate your regular retirement benefits. Your regular retirement benefits are calculated using your gross salary. Now, there are limits on how much you can contribute, but there are no minimum contributions. Now, RSA 1 is a 457 plan. So the limits for 457 plans in 2021, you can see they have not gone up since 2020. It's still $19,500 if you're under 50, $26,000 if you're 50 or older. And we have, I think this is very unique to just RSA 1. I don't believe the other deferred compensation plans at Auburn University offer a catch-up provision, but we offer a catch-up provision for those who are within 3 years of retirement eligibility to catch up by pulling unused deferrals from years in the past and apply them to your normal deferral limit of $19,500. So you can double it all the way up to $39,000 each year for up to 3 consecutive years. Okay, so that might be something of interest to those of you who are really wanting to beef up your retirement savings and also help lower your tax liability right now. Because if you're able to set aside $39,000 a year, into your RSA 1 account, that's going to really help with your tax liability. I mean, that's $39,000 that wouldn't be subject to income tax right now. So do understand we have a special catch-up provision with our plan. Now, as far as accessing your account from RSA 1, you can get access to it at any age, so long as you've separated employment, okay? Any age, so long as you've separated employment. So if I left at 47, after 25 years, I could begin drawing my RSA 1 monies. That's a nice feature of a 457B plan, like RSA 1. There are no, you can draw the money out regardless of your age. A lot of other plans require you be 59 and a half, for example, lest you pay an actual penalty to get access to your money. There are no penalties with RSA 1. The monies that you put in is your account, and you can draw it out whenever you separate employment. Now, you may be able to draw it out if you experience an unforeseeable emergency, tornado, hurricane. Those are some things that would be deemed unforeseeable. Or if you're still working at 70 and a half at Auburn University, you can begin distributions from your RSA 1 account in spite of still being employed. You can receive monies from your RSA 1 account through a lump sum distribution, which would be emptying out your entire account in one payment. Or you can take several partial lump sums if you wish over a period of time. Or you could do equal periodic payments, maybe once a month or once a year you get a payment from your RSA 1 account. Just remember that, the Secure Act, which passed last year, increased the age actually, when you would have to begin distributions. So if you are retired, you do have to commence distributions at age 72. I just read in the newspaper the other day that Congress is thinking about doing a Secure Act 2, which may be increasing that age limit, or that age where you have to take that required minimum distribution, from 72 to 75. So that might be in the cards in a couple of months if Congress decides to pass a Secure Act 2. So another great benefit of RSA 1 that I didn't mention earlier is being able to use the monies in your account to purchase service credit under the teacher's retirement system. So, you may not have monies readily available in your checking or savings account at the bank to make the purchase for that withdrawn service or out-of-state public service, for example. But if you have an RSA 1 account, you can pull money from that account and make the purchase, and there's no tax obligation. Real easy to do. Transfers in from other 457 plans are welcome, but only 457 plans can be transferred into RSA 1. If you wish to transfer monies into RSA 1, you first have to have an RSA 1 account, right? So set up your account prior to the transfer, and then we'll go ahead and pursue the transfer after you have your account set up. And you can invest the transferred money independently of any previous or future deferrals you make through payroll deduction into RSA 1. We actually would segregate the transferred money in your RSA 1 account, and we would let you, invest it differently if you wish. Now, keeping track of RSA 1 is really easy to do because, as I said, we still mail out quarterly statements. But if you want to find out more frequently how your account's performing, you can always visit our website and look at the rates of return for the 3 investment funds. Remember, you have the bond fund, the stock fund, and the short-term investment fund. And distributions, as I said, when you take monthly distributions from RSA 1, they will be transferred to your bank account via direct deposit on the same day that you receive your TRS retirement benefit, the last business day of the month. So, enrolling in the plan, very easy to do. I showed you the member handbook earlier in the presentation, of course, before the recording, but you can go on our website, and I'll show you that in just a second. There are 4 forms that you'd have to fill out to enroll. The first 3 you'd remit back to RSA. The 4th form, authorization to defer, is what you give your payroll officer. Now, I would really encourage you to speak with your payroll officer because Auburn University has you don't defer a dollar amount, you defer a percentage of your salary. Okay, that's how it works with Auburn University, is my understanding. So you'd want to work with your payroll officer to determine how much that percentage of your salary would equate into a dollar amount each pay period. You can enroll at any time, and there's no open enrollment period. And I don't know if Auburn University has any issues with you changing how much you're putting into RSA 1, but always follow your payroll officers. We don't care if you want to increase, decrease. as often as you'd like, but your payroll officer may have some, some rules in place about when you can and can't change how much you're putting into the RSA 1 plan. Alrighty. Now, the back of the member handbook has the 4 enrollment forms, but we also have on our website, which I'm going to show you in just a second again, we also have on our website the enrollment packet for RSA 1. So I'm just going to pull that up real quickly here. And this is our contact information on our website. Under RSA 1, you can look at the rates of return. Okay. And I saw a question, are there contributions to RSA 1 pre-tax? Yes, they are. They are pre-income tax, okay? Not, you still got to pay the FICA prior to the contribution. But RSA 1, you look at the historical rates of return for this past fiscal year, the past 12 months. You see them up here on the screen. Yeah, as I said earlier, yeah, stock was not looking good in February. It was down real bad in March, but came roaring back in April, May, June, July. So you can see we post on a monthly basis. If you want to look at the historical rates of return, you can go back 10 years here. Just make sure that you look at the total return. As I said, the bond fund in 2019 had over a 9% rate of return. That is kind of an outlier, especially when you compare it to more recent years. The stock fund didn't do as well in 2019 as the bond fund, but if you go down, you can see the stock fund has certainly outperformed the funds and a lot of the years since we emerged from the Great Recession. Now, with the RSA 1, to enroll, I said the enrollment packet's under forms. Just go down here to enrollment packet, and you'll be presented with the enrollment forms here. You have the enrollment form, that's pretty self-explanatory. Check that you're under the teacher's retirement system. And then you'll go down to the beneficiary designation form, and this is for your RSA 1 account now, not for your TRS. You check RSA 1. PRAF is a plan that went away back in 1986, so no one can join PRAF anymore. We may have a few people who've been working since then who have a PRAF account, but probably not too many in this audience. Here you'd indicate your name, who you are, and then also designate your primary beneficiaries for your RSA 1 account. Sign it before a notary public. And on the back side, you would designate any contingent beneficiaries. Again, contingent beneficiaries only receive money if you and your primary beneficiary or beneficiaries pass away together in a car accident. Okay, here's where you'd indicate how you wish to invest the monies, between the bond, the stock, and the short-term investment fund. Just make sure it adds up to 100%. And also, if you're a drop member, you can roll over your drop into RSA 1. You can also roll over your plop. If you take a plop payment, you can roll over that into RSA 1. Not particularly sure why people would want to do that with plop, but certainly if we have any drop people, understand that you can roll that drop money into RSA 1, okay? And we would segregate it in the account so you can invest it independently of any previous deferrals you've made to RSA 1. Very last form is what you give to payroll officer, indicating whether you're a new enrollment, you want to increase, decrease, restart, stop. But here where it says dollar amount, this is where I ask that you work with your payroll officer, because my understanding is that Auburn University has you defer on a percentage of your salary, not a dollar amount. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and bring it back to this screen very quickly for you to jot down our contact information. TRS info or RSA1 info at rsa-al.gov. During the pandemic, don't call us. We've got people calling all the time. It's so much easier if you just shoot us an email. I think you have record of it. It's just a lot better, I think, if we go by email. So I encourage you to email us if you have any questions that you think of between now and whenever we finish today and later on. You always just send us an email. We'll be happy to talk about it.